Tarantula! I need to remake this shirt because this no shirt is way too far over here. Anyway. Alright, welcome. You ready to learn stuff? Good. Today we will be talking about functions. What is your function? Conjunction function. That is not how it goes. I'm sure there's a copyright issue if I said it the right way. Anyway, let's go. Well, JavaScript. So I decided to put a video together that just talks about functions because functions are a very important piece of programming. Every language I've ever dealt with that I can think of off the top of my head deals in functions. There's going to be a slew of built-in functions, like for instance, you can go to php.net/ArraySum, for instance, is a built-in function in PHP. Hey, look at that, internet. And this calculates the sum of values in an array. But you can see that it is its own function reference. And then programming in itself is writing functions that are either a grouping of different functions like this, or operations that you put in yourself into a function that gets whatever accomplished that you need to do. So we are going to start with JavaScript. Hit this button again. JavaScript, open up development console and play along with these vanilla functions. So in pretty much every modern browser now on a desktop, not so much mobile, but on desktop you'll have inspect or inspect element, or you'll have a development selection up here someplace. Most of the normal ones you can get directly to it by doing a right click, and just clicking inspect or inspect window. And I think I'm drawing lines all over the place. And it will open it either connected to this window or detached from this window. All right, so in Chrome, this is Brave browser, which is basically Chrome with heavier ad blockers on it. Works pretty good. I like it. It's got these 3 dots and so will Chrome. You click that and it says you can pop out the window, or you could have it connected to the left or the bottom or the right. And I see a lot of people that like it this way. You can do whatever you like. I like it popped out so it's its own separate window. You can see when you hover over things, it'll highlight things. If you hover over these HTML elements, it will highlight the HTML element that you're hovering over. And this isn't the best example, so I can, I'll go right back to php.net/ArraySum and inspect this element, and you can see that one H3 element is highlighted. You can go through and figure out how all the HTML lines up on whatever page you want to. Go nuts. And something else that you can do on this little console window here is, I guess I should also mention, it has CSS right here as well, so you can see the styles of everything from either inline styles or CSS sheets. We're going to get into all of that. You'll have a total understanding later, but I just wanted to point it out that you do have all of your HTML here, all of your CSS here, how it's calculating all the CSS, borders, margins, padding, all that fun stuff. You can really get lost in just the development console alone. It's pretty neat. Console, I think I said council. It's a console. English. However, down here in this area, or if you click this console tab up here, you have direct access to this page's JavaScript. So I guess I'll point that out quick, even though I know I'm going to talk about it later in the JavaScript videos. But JavaScript runs in the document. And the best way to say that is that it will run in the tab. So if I write JavaScript on this page here, for instance, the JavaScript that's written that allows me to write on here isn't on this tab. So I can't write on this one because that JavaScript, it's not shared between tabs or within a browser. It's just within one page. So that being said, with this console area, I can run JavaScript directly into this browser tab as I want. For instance, see up here it says whiteboard, and this is the title tag. And I don't remember exactly how to do this, so I kind of wish I didn't say it, but I already said it, so here we go. Document dot... Is it just title? It is just title. Document.title equals yo mama. And if I hit that, it will change that to yo mama. I did this in the last video too. I totally spaced that. So you can change that to whatever you'd like. Document, as long as you spell it right, document.title equals whiteboard. And change it right back to what it was. That's an example of changing something on this tab using JavaScript. Some of the more well-known JavaScript functions that you can use, like alert is a good one that just pops up window. Hi, how you are, whatever, and hi, how you are, there you are. And there's also confirm, where you can put stuff, it will return true or false. You could actually say console.log confirm, are you hungry? Like that. And of course, okay, I'm hungry. And it will say true because it returned true. We're going to get a lot deeper into that. I'm just showing you that all of this stuff is possible through the console. We're actually going to be doing this a ton, a wicked ton, if you're from Massachusetts. Even if you're not, it'll be a lot. Okay, so let's go on to the next thing. I wanted to take a break. This could be its own video as well, but instead I'm just going to shoehorn it into this video. Variable naming conventions. So we're going to talk about how you should come up with variable names. You can get different answers from all different kinds of developers on this. Some people will be very, very descriptive with their variable names, and they'll have variable names that are like, a variable that's like branch, employee, customer, because it would be like a customer's customer, vehicle, VIN number, something like that. And you could say let, in JavaScript, you start that with let equals 123, which is obviously a terrible VIN number. And then, you'd have to type all that whole thing out. A lot of things will just let you tab through it, like command line, like I was showing you command line before. And that's where that's stored. So you can use big, long, descriptive variable names like this, and they will be very verbose in what they are holding or what information they're holding. However, keep that in mind that you will probably, and other people, if you work on a team, will have to type it out hundreds, maybe thousands of times. So, something like this, a branch, employee, customer, vehicle, VIN number, could probably just be something as easy as customer, vehicle number, or maybe branch, customer, vehicle number. It really all depends on your particular situation. I will tell you that when I first started programming, I would run into issues because I would use source as a variable name. And that's not a good variable name to use because that's used in a lot of HTML elements or as words that are used in programming. For instance, like you wouldn't want to use for, right? You won't want to say let for equal 123, even though, it's not even going to let me. Even though in some languages that will work, but then all your for loops where you're counting through stuff and doing some functions with it will break, may break, might break. Result is sometimes a bad one. Resource is a bad one. Number, you don't want to use number, or string. You don't want to use string because those are data types, and some languages require you to put like this variable ASDF is going to be a string, so you want to shy away from that, be descriptive in them, but don't be too vague either. Like I used to use dog and arf. You'll see in programming tutorials foo and bar very often. those will work great in the language because they're not being used for anything, but they're really bad because they don't describe what the variable is holding. Check for spelling because of my OCD. There are variables. Let me try to make one up here, which is not real. Furniture, warehouse, forklift. That's a good one. And then, it would be a typo like this. H-O-H-U-O-S-E instead of H-O-U-S-E in the middle of the variable. And I've seen programmers do this, and they put that in there, and then, the programming, the IDE, whatever they're using for programming, will remember furniture. It will remember that misspelling, and then they tab through it and they use it over and over and over again. Guess what? It's now like that forever in your code base, and everybody else has to use that misspelling. So I know I am bringing this up because my OCD is demanding it of me, but it is really important to watch your spelling and your case when first making that variable. 99% of the time, you're not going to have to type out all these variables, and your IDE will fill it in. But there's a chance that you might be part of the 1% when you become a developer, and then it will just jam you up. Variable scope. I'm really going to talk about that already. Okay. All right. Well, I did not think that through. Let's see. Open. Actually, that's fine. We can go right back to my file. Remember that thing? Remember how to get to it? Oh, how do we get to that? File, like that, and it's say users, tutorials, and documents. If you don't know what this is, then go back to the third video. It's the HTML part 1 local. If you don't know what that is. Now why am I here? JavaScript. Okay. So let's get rid of all of this stuff, but I don't necessarily want to get rid of it, so I'm just going to comment it out. Remember how we can do that? We can do that and slash and all the way down here at the bottom. Well, this is going to get in my way. So this is neat. I could point this out since I accidentally ran across it. This end comment tag, since this beginning one is here, it doesn't care about this one because it's not parsing the HTML. So this one started the comments and this one ended it. So if I put another ending comment here and I save it and I refresh this, the video will still be there because according to the browser, the comments ended here. So you can't have comments nested inside comments. And I've seen this in many languages, not just HTML, but JavaScript, PHP, a lot of places. So to get rid of that, you can either get rid of that comment and you're good, or both comments, so it's not confusing later. Of course, that will show up, but we'll just leave it like that. So now everything's commented out and this is blank. And we are going to talk about some JavaScript a little prematurely, but that's okay. In this body tag, we're going to put a script tag and an ending script tag because those are HTML tags. And it used to be, so you know, it used to be recommended to put type text JavaScript, but that is no longer necessary. Script will automatically default to JavaScript in every browser I know about. So we're going to start here and put some JavaScript. And JavaScript is going to process as soon as HTML renders it. So I can just start writing procedurally here, right? So the procedure would be, okay, it's a doc type HTML. The HTML, here's my header, go through my header, do my stuff. There's a style sheet in there, starting the body script, and it would just run JavaScript at this point. So we're going to start with talking about something that is losing its way in JavaScript, var. which is how we used to, and still do, talk about global variables. So global variable is a variable that's scoped and it should be able to be used anywhere in your application, depending on the application. So in this instance, this document that we're working in is our scope. Because remember, JavaScript is only going to run in this tab. So we've got whatever JavaScript we're loading into here at this point. You can load JavaScript in externally. We're going to get into that later, but right now we're starting simple, baby steps. So var, we are going to say camera model, because I'm looking at my camera right here, and it is a Mark II something, D, I don't care. It's a Mark II. And we can see that if I do alert, like we were just doing, and we do my camera model is, and then I use a plus sign to concatenate strings, and then the variable name, camera model. I save that, and I run it here. It will say my camera model is Mark II. So that tells us that this procedural code, that I can just go into a page and start writing code in these script tags and it will fire off the code. That's wonderful. We're making stuff. So the scope of that variable is global. And I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. If I put this in a function, this is a function, do alert, right? And I got my squiggly brackets, and I'm just going to tab that over a little bit. If you put this inside of a function, and then I'm going to save this and run it again, nothing happens, right? And here's why. I'm still saying that my camera model is going to be Mark II. And I've got this in a function, but nothing is calling the function. So let's call the function. If I just simply put do alert with those parentheses, then that will be calling the function, and it'll do it in order. It'll say, okay, camera model's Mark II. I'm going to define my function, and I'm going to call the function. I save that and refresh it. The camera model is Mark II. var is kind of frowned upon now, even though it's still used. I still use it very often. A lot of people like using const instead, which I believe stands for constant. I'm not really sure because I don't use it. But this is an example of something I would do if I'm going to use camera model in multiple functions. So, for instance, if I have another function, let's do this, and I call it the second one, right? And I'm just going to do another alert, just keep it nice and easy. This is the second one. Okay. Oh, right. And then I'm going to put plus camera model. This is the second one, Mark II. Whatever, that works. And again, it's not called yet, so I'm going to add the call right here. Just so it's going to call do alert. It's going to do this alert and it's going to stop for a second and wait for my answer. Then it's going to do the second one and do another alert. So if I save that and refresh this, my camera model is Mark II. I hit OK. It says this is the second one, Mark II. Great. Now we're finally going to talk about scope. So let's get rid of this and put that in here. And instead of var or const, I'm going to use let. And let is a lot of younger people will get mad at me for saying this, but let is what I use most of the time when I'm defining a JavaScript variable, just because it's the easiest and it's not global. So you can write all your comments down below. I'll answer them. I'll say I'm sorry. I don't know what you want. So I'll say let camera model equal, and this time I'll change it just for fun, and I'll say it's a Canon EOS, but I won't say which one. And then I will refresh it, and I say my camera model is Canon EOS. That's great, that worked. And then this, wait a second, where'd the second one go? Oh, I have an error. Camera model is not defined at the second one, right? So it's telling me exactly where the problem is in this console. This console's great. It's very handy. And it'll even tell you the line number and everything. So we go back here and we say, okay, well, inside the second one, it couldn't find camera model. And the reason is because I defined it inside this function, and it's no longer available outside of this function. So let's see, how can we fix that? What's a good way to fix that? So I think a good way is to pass it to the second function. I mean, I think the best way would be just to make it global and so it's available everywhere. But that might not suit your purpose. So we're going to pass it from the doAlert function to the second one function. And this is how we're going to do it. Instead of calling these one at a time, we're going to get rid of that. And after we do the first alert, from here we're going to say the second one, and we're going to put camera model in here. It's Sunday again. I can't type. And then since it should make good sense that since I'm calling it and I'm putting this variable in these parentheses, that it's going to wind up in these parentheses when I'm defining the function camera model. If that doesn't make sense, wait till later because I will go way more in depth in that. So now I have the camera model function, the camera model variable in the doAlert function, and it's scoped to this doAlert function. It's only available inside here. I use it, then I call a second function, and I pass the camera model along to the second function. The second function sees it coming in and then uses it. That's what should happen. So let's check it out. Camera model is EOS. The second one Canon EOS. That's terrible English. And there you go. That works. So that is my starting points when talking about scope. Obviously, we did this in JavaScript, but scope works very similarly in all of the languages that I'm going to be showing you. There we go. Moving on. This here is not a note to me. This is what I was going to say to you. Please do similar what's already there. You might learn one way to structure your code, like a very, very, very small aspect of this would be to put these first parentheses back and have your code here. So this is something I ran across, and this cracked me up because there's all these different styles, like actual named styles of how to write code and how to structure code. And you know, like this is the one that I do. Kernighan and Ritchie. I don't think I've ever even read these names. This is the one that I just showed you. You know, some people do it. They pop this down here. Current job that I'm at is a mixture of these two, and I've seen whitesmiths where they try to just center everything, sort of. I don't know if that's proper to say. And I've seen Horstman, which is like the only difference is you put the first squiggly bracket on the first line and then you start writing the code on the first line. And I don't think that's very easy to read at all. And then these other ones I haven't really seen. There's just different spaces and indentations. Anyway, the point that I was going to say is if you get a job working at a shop and you can see their code style, do their code style. Like, you don't have to forcibly use whatever style that you're used to and say, well, this is how I learned and that's how I like it, or it's pretty or prettier. That's all I'm going to say about that. Document.getElementById. This is a terrible line. It was so straight at first. That's better. what we're going to do, let's get rid of all of this function stuff here, and we're going to make a div. A div, if you don't know yet, is basically just a box. It is a box. So we're going to say div class equals test object div. And I'm going to save that and just run that. Oh, I closed it. Users, tutorials, documents, my file. And there it is, test object. We're going to give it a little style so we know what it looks like. So I gave it the class of test object. So I'm going to say dot test object, little premature CSS stuff here. And we're going to give it a border, 3 pixels, red, not fed, red, solid. And we're going to give it some padding on the inside of that border, 10 pixels, just something so we can see it better. All right, and it spanned all the way across there. You know what, just for fun, we're going to say display inline block. That way it'll just be that box right here. Now, oh, right, I'm sorry, one more thing, and we're going to give it an ID. So HTML tags, I would say that the 2 main attributes that they will usually have is a class and an ID. Sometimes it has both, sometimes it just has one. In this instance, we have both. I'm going to say ID is also going to be test object. Why not? The class name and the ID name can be the same, so that's not a problem. Not going to run into any conflicts that way. All right, so we're going to save this and refresh it. And then if we right-click on this and say inspect, you can see that it highlights test object, object ID. Now what I'm going to show you right now is document.getElementById is the way to target an object in the DOM using JavaScript. That's a lot of words. I'm going to say let, because that's the one that I prefer. And I'm going to say TOBJ, right? Because this is going to be a reference to the object. It's not the object itself, but a reference to it. So it's a variable name that I'm going to say, you know, whatever I do to TOBJ is going to do to the test object. Document.getElementById. And then in single quotes or double quotes, they both work in JavaScript. I like using single quotes. Test object. And I hit enter. That's it. Nothing's changed. Test object is still there. It's still in the DOM, the document object model. And nothing changed with it visibly. However, I could say TOBJ.remove, and that will just get rid of it. So what we did there is we told JavaScript that I want to reference this actual object that's on the website as TOBJ. And then which this is, you know, very inefficient because now it's gone forever. But I say TOBJ.remove, and it just knew, okay, that's another built-in function that I know as JavaScript, and I'm gonna remove it. And I removed it, and now it's gone. So now I'm gonna refresh this so we can put that back and go to the next thing. Console.log. This is very, very handy and also has a direct relationship to our development console. We can say console.log. This is a log message. I have an extra space in there, and this here, because I can't type today, we're just going to leave it just like that and save it. And now that I'm thinking about this, I already did a console.log earlier in this video. Now we get to talk a little bit more about it. So I've added it to this page as JavaScript. When I refresh this page, you can see that it logs a message. This is a log message. This is very, very helpful when you're trying to figure out why your JavaScript isn't working, and you can step through your code doing these console.logs and find out where your application is not working. Every programming language, not just JavaScript, but every programming language, you have some sort of logging method, and if you don't, you will definitely have a way to write to a file, and you can just write your own logs. We're going to get into that when we get into PHP, but just so you know, the logging is not just in JavaScript. It is everywhere. JavaScript also has a couple different things. You can say warn, and then change this to, this is a warning, buddy. And then when I refresh this, I could actually make this a little bit smaller so we can see this sitting there. When we refresh this, you'll see that it does a yellow line and puts whatever text you want in there. This is good if you have something in your application that may not work, but your application can still keep on working, and you can write yourself a log note so you can see what's happening. They also have console.error, and you say things are foobar. And then go back to the console, back to the site, and refresh it, and you can see that that looks more like what you'd expect to be an error. Things are foobar, and where it came from, even. So that is all. That's as far as I'm going with console.error as a built-in function. There are more. These do other things. You can do more things with the console, but those are the three that I'm going to show you right now. Moving on. Function, my function. Well, kind of jumped the gun there, huh? We already know about this. Function is what goes in front when you're creating or defining a function, and then the name of your function, and then use another color for fun, the meats of your function, or the stuff that you want to have happen in your function. Of course, we've already gone through that when we were doing those other functions. So hopefully I won't confuse people by, I should have put that, my trackpad's not working. I should have put that right up here. I did not realize I was doing that. Anywho, moving on. Right. I believe this is called arrow syntax, and this is a somewhat newer syntax for JavaScript. At least it's newer to me. And I will show you a function of how this works. So we're going to say I'll even use that, my function equal, and then our parentheses like this, and then an arrow, and then we've got squiggly marks, and we'll just say console.log. This is the arrow syntax function. It's a shorthand, way to write JavaScript, and I don't know if I like it yet or not. But you can see if I save this right now and I refresh it, it's not going to do anything because, again, just like those other functions, I'm not calling it yet. I've defined it, but I'm not calling it. So I call it the same way, my function with the parentheses, and save it and refresh it. You can see in the console, there it is. This is your arrow syntax function. I can refresh it again, and there it is, and it'll just do that all day. jQuery. jQuery is, I don't remember their site. This is just jQuery.com. jQuery, you may have heard of, is it's a library that you can add into your web page that allows you a set of shortcuts for JavaScript functions. This is it's very handy. Some people don't like it. I did not like it at first. It's true. I did not like it at first. I just used regular JavaScript and I was fine with it until I started using jQuery, and then I realized it does save me a lot of time, a lot of typing you can definitely program with it faster. I've heard the same things about other JavaScript frameworks. This is less of a framework and more of just a helper library. But like I said before, I can't stress this enough. If you decide to learn jQuery or React or Vue or underscore or any of the other libraries or frameworks that are out there that run off of JavaScript, do yourself a favor and at least learn some JavaScript so this isn't what you know. Like you don't want to just say I only know jQuery and nothing else, because there's a really good chance that if a shop uses jQuery, they also use JavaScript. So I'm going to show you, because I didn't think about this, where I was going to do this really. If I say jQuery CDN, a CDN is what does that stand for? Content deployment, dang it. Content Deployment Network. CDN stand for Content Delivery Network. So I just Googled jQuery CDN. There's a ton of them. There's one directly from jQuery. CDN.JS. I have heard of this before, but I don't think I use it. There's another one that I'm not seeing. Oh, this one, JS Deliver, CDN to jQuery. We're just going to use jQueries for the time being. You can see that if you click on one of these links, let's do jQuery 3 point whatever, it'll be the most recent stable of that version, and 3 is obviously the newest. We're going to say uncompressed so we can take a look at it when we get it. And it gives you this little chunk of code, and you can see this should look familiar to what we were just working with, the script tags. We're going to copy this, and there you go, it's copied to the clipboard. And close this, say thank you very much. And then up in our header tag, in between these tags here, I'm going to actually put it right after the style tag. We're going to paste what we got from that other website, from jQuery website. And obviously, if you ever do stuff like this where you're reaching out to other websites, be sure you know what you're doing, because JavaScript can be very powerful and it can be used for nefarious purposes. So be sure that it's coming from a good source. I think jQuery.com is a good source to get jQuery. That being said, save that, refresh it, and of course my function is still being called, so we can get rid of this. We're all done with that. And we're going to go to the console, and you can see that now that's being added in here, and it's also being loaded. And there's a way to do it in here, but I'm going to do it in here because I feel like it makes more sense to show you this way. If you right click on here and you say view page source, like we were doing before, you can see that it's right here, our new tag, and you can just click this and it'll go right to it. And this is what it's pulling in from jQuery. And this is the library that lets jQuery work. And you can see that there's quite a bit of it. And years ago, you used to look at libraries like this and go, oh, this is heavy. This is a lot of stuff to load into my website. I don't want my website users to sit there and wait forever for all of this code to load. But now that everything is super, super fast and super smooth, it doesn't really matter. You can load quite a bit before any of these external libraries are going to add significant amounts of time or loading time to your website. So now we've got jQuery available. What are we going to do with it? So we're looking at jQuery. It's a framework. There's others like Angular, React, Vue, underscore. No matter, it's important to learn the underlying language. I just went through all that stuff. So let's look at the first thing. And this is a built-in function of jQuery, right? Because we're talking about functions. Without getting too deep into things, I will do an array. I'm going to say let again because I enjoy let. and I'm going to say dogs. See, now I'm using dogs as a variable when I told you not to. But I'm really going to talk about dogs. And I've got 3 dogs, Bob, Bill, and Sniffles. He hasn't been feeling good. A built-in function in jQuery is each. And each will take your variable first, like dogs, that we just defined here, which is our array of dog names. And you put a function in here like this. I'll explain it. So what we're doing here is we're going to use jQuery's built-in function, each, to go through each of the dogs and do a function for each of the dogs that we come across. I is the key of the array. So each one of these elements has a key attached to it that we're not seeing here. We did not program it this time, but it's there. This one is 0, this one is 1, and this one is 2. Not going to go very deep into that, but I did want to say what it is because I typed it. And then v is the value. So we can say console.log v and just leave it at that. We're going to save it, go back here, and not this one, sorry, go back here and run it. And you can see in our console, it did a console.log built-in function for each one of our dogs, Bob, Bill, Sniffles. That's great. Let me show you this as well. If we change this console.log to an alert, oops, I pressed too hard. Alert, sorry, save it and refresh. It says Bob, it says Bill, it says Sniffles. And that is each. And that's a quick way to iterate through something using jQuery. Obviously, I just wanted to show you this function. I'm not going to go too deep into it. Next is Ajax. The reason I put Ajax in here is because I use it very, very often. Ajax is, do I know what Ajax stands for? What does Ajax stand for? I know that it's a soap. It's like an old dish soap. It stands for asynchronous JavaScript and XML. I don't think I knew that. Anyway, what it does is something that's built into JavaScript, which is an XHR request. And XHR is XML HTTP request. That's a lot of things that we've heard before already so far. But basically, it allows JavaScript to reach back to the server and get some information without reloading the page. It is used constantly, does not describe how constantly XHR requests or Ajax is used in JavaScript. So because of its importance, I wanted to type one out so that we can see what it does. And we're going to do a couple things. First thing we're going to do is we're going to make a new document right next to my file. How am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to say this untitled one is new, and I'm going to say my dog has fleas. And that's it. That's all I'm going to do. I'm just going to do that. And I'm going to put it right next. Here's my file. I don't want to call it my file, though. I'm going to say XHR text. And then in here, my Ajax call, we give it some functions inside of this structure. And the URL is XHR text, just like that. Right. Sorry. There's usually more stuff that goes here. I'll show you that in a second. And then we're going to do success function message and do something with the message. We're just going to console.log the message. And that's it. I think that's all. Let's save it and run it and see if that's the case. Then that text should show up right there, and it doesn't. It blows up. Kaboom! Access tags requested from origin null. From origin null. So I think it's because I'm using the file and I can't use that. This is to protect you. It's been blocked by the CORS policy, the cross-origin request. And what, I didn't know this would happen. So I actually have to be, I think I have to be connected to a server, at least in localhost. Will that work? Is localhost even on? It works, man. Well, that's what I'm going to do, but I am going to explain this. If you are on www.myfantasticwebsite.com and you do an AJAX request to Google, for instance, something that's not your request, then it may be a violation of this CORS policy. There's ways around it, but that's what happened here, and I didn't expect it, so I apologize profusely. Let's go to where this thing is. Where is this thing? Do you remember how I said how to find that? To and grep I directory of HTTPD. If you don't remember this, then go back to that same HTML video. I went through this already, and it's in library WebServer documents. Library. Oh, right. WebServer documents. I don't even know if this will work, so we're going to give it a try. Say this, and a file, save as, library, WebServer, documents, save. It was .txt anyway, and then open up this index file with bb edit, and before here script, and the script, oh my goodness, I'm whipping through this fast. I don't know if I'm gonna edit this out or just see what happens. I don't even know if that's gonna blow up. Oh my goodness. Let's get rid of this for a second. Open up this one. Okay. And then I'm gonna say ajax URL. What did I call it? No, it's right there. xhr text.text. I didn't realize I put that. And success function message console.log message. That's inconvenient. Do that. 403 forbidden. All kinds of problems. All kinds of problems. CD. Apache 2. That's not where it is. Library, WebServer, documents. And we're going to say sudo chmod 755. Just everything. My super secret password. Make sure that that's stuck. And do that. It's there. Okay. So I don't know if I'm going to show you everything that happened there, but basically, actually I'm not, because I'm going to run through it. So basically I tried to do an Ajax request to this same directory, but because I'm using this file // trick, that JavaScript said, well, is it the same domain name that it's coming from? And it doesn't understand this as a domain name or an origin. It sees the origin as null because it's not really connected to a web server. So what I did is, if you remember, we turned on Apache in our Mac because it's already built in, and you just got to click it on, and this is understood by Apache. So I can do an Ajax call back to the server, back to localhost, and say, get this xhr text.txt file, which if you remember is just my dog has fleas. You should remember is only a second ago. It was a couple minutes to me. And I refresh this. You can see in the log, it says my dog has fleas. Whew. So let's close this. And I will take this one step further. This is not normally just going to be text that's sitting on a server. It's going to be like a message like this. And this is a JSON string, JSON, and it is a data structure that's used very frequently, which we'll get into that as well. Okay, one step further, added puppy peed on the floor. They do that. Go back to my file here, and instead of MSG, I can say MSG.MSG, right, which is a bit confusing, so we're going to change that a little bit, and we're going to change this to response.msg. And this could be anything. This actually, I use data more often, data.message. If I save that, I should just change the permissions, and I refresh this, and you can see in the console it is undefined because it did not work. Because the data type's not there. There you go. And then I refresh this, and my dog has fleas. Now, the reason I showed you this is because in this data structure, we've got MSG, is my dog has fleas, and puppy peed on the floor. So I can, in this one, change this to puppy instead of MSG, and then refresh it, and you'll see in the console, peed on the floor. Whew. That's heavy. PHP has a lot of built-in functions. One of them that is used very frequently when debugging is die. Die, you can look at pretty much any built-in function in PHP if you say php.net and the name of the function, and it will usually come straight up, but it didn't come up for me, so here it is, die. And first thing I read is poor design to rely on die. I mean, I don't think I've ever really had die in my code, but it is used for debugging quite often. I use it for debugging a lot. So what we're going to do is I've logged into one of my servers here so that we can play around with this here and do some quick PHP. Obviously, you can run PHP in web pages as the server-side programming language, but you can also just run it from the command line like many other languages. So we're going to do that to try to show you some of these functions and how they work. Vim test.php, that's easy enough. And Vim, remember, is that command line text editor. So we hit A or I to insert, and we're just going to start typing our PHP. All PHP has to start with that tag, the less than sign, question mark in PHP. And we're going to use echo. Echo is also a built-in function along with print, but echo is it just outputs something from PHP to wherever it's going. In this case, it's going to the command line. Otherwise, it would be going to your web page. This will make more sense later. It's also synonymous with print. So we're going to say echo, and echo is a little different because it does not require these parentheses. You can use them if you'd like, but it's not required. So we can say echo hello there, because I'm saving hello world for later, and escape Shift Z to save that, and then very simply PHP test.php, and it says hello there. That simple. Now, if I go to test.php, since we're talking about die, and I say insert, I put die as my first command, and escape, and save this. When I run PHP test again, nothing comes out because it died before the echo command. So there's there's an example of a couple PHP functions, echo and die. File get contents is another example. I'm not going to go through all of these quite yet, but I did bring that up because that is a good function to use. File get contents is a built-in function that will go and get data from a file that's sitting right on your server or sitting out on the internet. It's very, very handy and flexible. We'll get into that later. And then adding a function to use in PHP is just as simple, very similar as JavaScript. Let's get rid of this die here. I'm going to say function say hello. And we're going to move our echo hello here just to change it a little bit. And then do that. We're going to get rid of this quickly and save it. And if we say PHP test.php, nothing happens, but this time nothing's supposed to happen. Go back into test.php, and then you notice that we defined our function, but we never called it. So if we just say hello, and escape Shift Z to save, PHP test.php, and it says hello here, right? Because now it's using the function that I built. Easy peasy. Databases have stored procedures, which are basically functions. So to show you some MySQL stuff, I'm going to jump ahead more and go into MySQL TDB. So this is a command line that goes directly to my MariaDB, which is also, it's a fork of MySQL. It is the same thing as MySQL, just not owned by Oracle. There's a lot more to that than just that simple statement, but that's what we're going to leave it at right now. Database 2 has stored procedures. And I'm going to type that out so we can see what this is. So select current time stamp. I cannot type. There, finally. So I can say, obviously we're not going to get into SQL quite yet. As you can see, I can say select current timestamp, and it spits out a timestamp. You can make functions in MySQL as well, or MariaDB, your database. They're usually called stored procedures. And we're going to make one just so I can show you how it works. Delimiter is 2 slashes, and we're going to say create procedure, my function, begin, select hello there sucker with a semicolon, and then my new delimiter, and it says hey, everything's fine. Then I'm going to say delimiter back to a semicolon, so I can say select now, and it shows you okay, now is that, and then I can call my function, because now it's a function that I can call. Haha, and then it says hello there sucker. See, I knew I could do it. It just took some coaxing. Python. I wanted to bring up Python just because of their structure being different. Vim test.py, and we can make a quick little Python crunch bang. Oh, I know. Sorry. Bang user bin Python3. Things always have to be spelled right. Is that right? It's the other way. Yeah, like that. Let's see if that's right. Which Python3 user bin Python3. Okay, that's good. I'm gonna say print. Print. Hello. It's been a while since I've used Python. Python3 test.py. And it says hello. Oh, wonderful. Python. In the world of Python, the structure is different. And we can, Python is white space delimited. Python uses white spaces instead of curly brackets. There's a better way to say it, but evidently my mouth doesn't want to do it. And we say def instead of the word function. We say def defines a function. My function, and then we can just use this here and put a tab here. And as you can, just like we did with the other languages, if I save this like this and I say python3.test, nothing happens because again, I defined the function, but I didn't call it. So if I add the call and I run it, then it runs. So that is a function in Python. The only reason I brought that up is because the structure is completely different. Okay, so that is all I'm going through with functions right now. I'm just showing you some basics of functions. All right, languages that we're using for development, for web development, are known as high-level languages. There are low-level languages that are like assembly language, which is machine code assembly language, which is super interesting to look at and figure out how it moves things around. It is wicked different than any kind of programming languages that you are going to run across as a web developer. But it is very interesting how the language deals directly with the hardware, as opposed to us just basically asking a compiler to change our language into this so that it tells the computer what to do. So what we're learning, JavaScript, PHP, other languages, Ruby, they're all high-level languages that usually get boiled down into some other compiled program. Programming languages have built-in functions. They are also known as BIF. I wonder if that would actually pull up built-in languages, or do we just get naked people? Band iron information. Built-in language, built-in functions. Built-in BIF functions, RPG. I think that's probably where I got BIF from, was RPG, dealing with IBM languages. And also, Biff Tannen. I hate manure. And then there's also, I guess I should say that there are languages are different in some cases, where some of them are interpretive languages like PHP and JavaScript, where you run the code and as far as you know, that's the code that runs, and compiled languages where you write your code and then you run a compiler that packages up your code into a program that's going to run. Basically, when you write a PHP script, it is compiled. It's just compiled at runtime. So when that PHP script is running, that's when PHP compiles it into a package real quick and sends it out, and that's what gets run. We're going through all of these languages, or a handful of languages, so that you can see that the format of functions are pretty much the same between all the languages that I'm going to show you. And JavaScript is a great language to start with because JavaScript, the way that it's structured and used, can be ported into other languages very easily. This isn't something that is super heavy in this set of tutorials, but I do want to bring up, if you start getting into JavaScript because of these tutorials and you say, man, I wish there was a way to just have JavaScript and nothing else, well, you're in luck. There is a server-side version of JavaScript called Node, and I think I'm going to get into that a little bit. There is a language that is written a lot like JavaScript that runs right on your server. But that's it. I'm done. Done with you. Stop. Oh, howdy, partner. I'm changing my channel for a little while, and here's what it's going to be about. I've been a computer programmer for almost 20 years. Has it been that long? Oh, God help me. I've had a lot of friends ask me how to code, so I'm putting these videos together in hopes to teach them, and you. I'm starting with about 60 videos, and you can see them all at blog.freddythunder.com/programming. And I will have all of the videos listed here, and this is probably subject to change, but these are the first 61 that I'm planning. And for the very few of you subscribers I do already have, I will still be making videos about the beast, and I'll still be doing music and skits and stuff. So be sure to like, subscribe, and leave some comments or some questions. I'll answer them, maybe.